What is up, everyone? Prometheus here. Today I'm going to be talking about Lawrence of Arabia, and it's kind of going to be just talk about different things, but mainly kind of how it's similar to Dune. Dune, if you don't know it yet, is the novel and eventual movie series, mainly the ones directed by Denis Villeneuve. Um, the story was written by Frank Herbert. I have the book right here, but I believe I heard somewhere that Frank Herbert was inspired by the story of T.E. Lawrence to write Dune. And after watching Lawrence of Arabia, and yes, before watching the film, I am a large Dune fan, the movies and the book. The book is amazing. But after watching it, I see where they got the inspiration from. I saw Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune, speak highly of the Dune of Lawrence of Arabia, and it's I can definitely see where he gets his inspiration from because Lawrence of Arabia is very similar to the Dune movies. The desert setting, the cinematography, the main character, that's what I'm talking about. See, T. Lawrence was the real life Paul Atreides, so both characters, not characters, both people are very similar. T.E. Lawrence, he was seen as a hero to some, but others a monster. Kind of like how Paul Atreides kind of blurred the line between hero and villain, became kind of a anti-hero and even villain in other people's eyes. In Dune, Paul is a person from a different planet. He goes to Arrakis and he leads a uprising of the Fremen people against the Harkonnens and eventually leads them to greatness, something like that. And I see that after watching this film is very similar. This story of T.E. Lawrence is very similar. The story of how T.E. Lawrence from Britain goes to Arabia and he he leads the Arabian people against the Turkish Empire, kind of like how Paul leads the Fremen people against the Harkonnens. So I see that's very similar. I mean, there's still some big differences between both stories, but biggest similarity is, of course, the main character and what he does. He leads a group of small people against the people that kind of have been taking advantage of them, taking control of them for many years. That being the Turkish Empire and the Harkonnens. So yeah, both books, both stories, both movies, very similar. But Lawrence of Arabia, again, I called it the greatest movie of all time, and I still stand by that. Like, I've watched the Godfather movies, both amazing, 10 out of 10 films. But I like Lawrence of Arabia, just overall critically. Like, I like the Godfather and Godfather Part 2 better than Lawrence of Arabia. I'd sooner return to those ones than this one. But critically, this is the best film I've ever seen. Everything is so airtight. The cinematography really brings the Middle East to life. Its acting is amazing. Like, I have nothing to criticize with this movie. Same thing with the Godfather movies, except for Part 3. Like, I cannot see any other film, like, opposing this. I've been searching for another film that might be better than Lawrence of Arabia. The only one I found that I think came close, being my second, what I believe is the second greatest historical epic, which is the 1960, about a couple of years before Lawrence of Arabia, but it's Spartacus. This is the only other film that I feel comes close to Lawrence of Arabia. However, the only problem I have is that I haven't seen this film in a long while, so I can't really compare them because I barely remember what happens in Spartacus. I know that it's a great movie. I remember I watched it only once in my life, and that's when I was younger with my parents. And I think I thought of giving it. I was kind of divided on giving it like a 9 or even 10 out of 10. I don't remember what problems I had with the film, but I'm gonna rewatch it, and maybe it might even be on the same level as Lawrence of Arabia. Who knows? Because this film is also about a man leading a rebellion of gladiators against the Romans, which is very similar to both Dune and Lawrence of Arabia. But Lawrence of Arabia is been the inspiration for so many. It's a very influential film. It's been the inspiration for many other it's been the inspiration for many other films, many other filmmakers. Like Steven Spielberg has talked about how it inspired him. Denis Villeneuve may have gotten a lot of inspiration from this film to make Dune as well. And I believe the story of the story Peter T.E. Lawrence's book, The Seven Pillars of Knowledge, which tells his story of his experiences in Arabia. That is what I hear inspired Frank Herbert to write Dune in the first place. So this film has a lot of influence. This story, and like some people have criticized this film for like being not entirely historically accurate, but when I'm watching movies, I don't really want to factor that into my critique of them because this is an otherwise flawless film. Like I don't really have anything to criticize about it. I've mentioned that before. I've praised it. Like I think T.E. Lawrence is my favorite historical protagonist in a movie. Like my favorite character based off a real person. He's like a lot like Paul Atreides. Like he's hero, he's a villain, he's an anti-hero. Like he's so many different things. He's realistic. He's not some perfect hero guy. He's bound to make mistakes and he's bound to be broken and he's changed by the war. That's what I like. Peter O'Toole. I mean, not Peter O'Toole. I get T. Lawrence and Peter O'Toole mixed up a lot. But T.E. Lawrence, or I'll just refer to him as Lawrence from now on. But he is. What was I going to say? Lawrence is just just really realistic. He's just like Paul Atreides. Lawrence of Arabia was the real life Paul Atreides. Like it's so amazing knowing that there was someone that was just like the character in real life, and he did something so similar to what happens in the Dune storyline in real life, and that's just amazing to me. Like, sure, there's no prophecy, there's no spice, and there certainly isn't all that sci-fi stuff. It was all real, and I'm just happy that this story exists, the story of Lawrence and the story of and also the story of Dune. I'm so happy both these stories exist because like I see that this film inspired this not this film the story of this film this but I'm so happy to see that Lawrence of Arabia and the overall story of Lawrence inspired Dune and inspired like we wouldn't have a lot of the Steven Spielberg movies without this because this is the film that inspired Spielberg to start making movies in the first place. Like, we wouldn't have Schindler's List, which is one of my top 5 movies of all time, a film that I will touch on in a later video. But gee, we wouldn't have a lot of those. We wouldn't have the Dune movies. Like, in fact, I don't think we'd have any of Denis Villeneuve's films if this film doesn't exist, because this is kind of what sparked his. I think he said something like this in the speech. There's a video where he talks about the film, but this is where he says this is kind of what sparked his true love for film, and I can see that this is like truly just filmmaking at its finest. I can say the same for The Godfather, Godfather Part 2, and I'm going to rewatch Spartacus to see if it's on the same level, because like my top 3 movies of all time currently are well, The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2 are both interchangeable for third and second place. Like, right now I feel number 3 Godfather, number 2 Godfather Part 2, because I'll make another a video talking about both films and which film I think is better, but I will say they're both 10 out of 10 movies, but um Lawrence of Arabia, since I've watched it, has sat firmly at top place. Lord of the Rings Return of the King used to be my number 1 movie of all time for a while, but then it changed. Then it changed to Schindler's List. Then it changed to Dune Part 2 for a while, but then I did find a few problems. Like, they're very, very, very small problems. Trust me. Only brought my score for the film down to like a 9.9 out of 10. But I mean, like, Dune Part 2 is still one of my top 20 movies of all time. Um, oh yeah, about the top 20 films. If this channel can hit, let's say, 1,000 subscribers, I will do that top 20, 10, 20 films of all time. I might make a top 3 movies of all time because my top three might change a bit, and I might move one of the Godmother Father movies to a fourth spot, and maybe even one of them to the second place or to the third. Who knows? But I'm watching Spartacus to see if it still is as amazing as I remember it is, and see if it's even on the same level or possibly even better than Lawrence of Arabia, which is hard to believe because I've never seen a film on this level. Another film that I have recently watched is Ben-Hur, which is the most well tied with Return of the King and Titanic as the most award-winning movie of all time, winning 11 Oscars. But I do feel for me this is the probable well, it's either this or Return of the King, but Ben-Hur is probably a contender for the best of the 311 Oscar-winning movies. Whereas I think Titanic's probably the weakest. It's still a great film. It's still a high 90s. It's still an amazing film. Deserved all the Oscars. But it's not as great as Ben-Hur or Return of the King. I don't know which one I would consider to be better, but Ben-Hur, I'm still thinking of a score for the film. I'm seeing if I can find any problems with it. But overall, right now, I'm thinking maybe of even giving it a 10 out of 10, because watching all these classical movies kind of bringing my list of 10 out of 10 movies up from like less than 10 to above 10, possibly even over 20. But like all of these are amazing films. But Ben-Hur, I think it's one of my top three historical epics, right? I think it's like my probably like third best historical epic of all time in my eyes, whereas second is Spartacus and first is Lawrence of Arabia. If you wondered where I would place Gone with the Wind, I would probably place it at fourth. Like, I love the film. Like, it's a great film. But, I like these ones better. Like, it's still, like, near 10 out of 10. I think it's amazing, but I like these ones better. Another film that I might check out is Ten Commandments. I'm checking out all of these, but they're all big, long movies. Like, even the shortest film is near 2.5 hours long. But, yeah, I was making this video to talk about how similar Lawrence of Arabia is to Dune, but now I'm just talking about multiple different movies and how they compare to Lawrence of Arabia, what I'm going to check out. But yeah, I'll be doing a lot more videos on different movies. Another film that I just got, another VHS, is also a film that I hear some people even consider, some of them, rarely, or, well, not rarely, but for some reason I hear people consider this to be better than Lawrence of Arabia. That film is The Bridge on the River Kwai, which is by the same director as Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean, who is like one of my favorite directors of all time now. After even I've only seen one of his films that he's already one of my favorite, but usually these are the top two David Lean movies. Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai are always in the top two when it comes to the David Lean movies, but it's always different which one's in top spot. I usually see Lawrence in top spot, but a lot of other ones I hear people say Bridge on the River Kwai is his true masterpiece. That's better than Lawrence of Arabia, which I see as hard, but I'm gonna watch it and see what I think. If it is better, then it's gonna overtake this as my new number one movie of all time, new greatest film ever made. Or even see if it measures up to the Godfather movies, which I also think are the greatest, like some of the greatest films of all time, alongside Lawrence of Arabia. But overall, yeah. Lawrence of Arabia still has like some of the best cinematography, some of the best shots, acting, and just overall story. Like, some people say they're not gripped by the story in certain aspects of it as much, which is understandable. I was gripped by it the whole way, and it never let go. But um, I honestly can't have. I've said this before. I don't have anything to criticize with Lawrence of Arabia. It's every aspect is everything you'd love about a film. Everything that you would need from a film is in here. Like, I don't see anything this film fails at, so I see it also very hard to find a film that kind of does that, that excels in every category, and that has nothing, like, that's really hard to do. You can't make a film where every last aspect is great, because there's always going to be something where it fails at. But for all these 10 out of 10 movies that I have, they don't. So, back to the other movies, but Bridge on the River Kwai here is great. My grandparents really like it. I mean, they grew up with these films, so of course they'd love it. There's a lot of biblical movies in here too, which I like. I'm a Catholic man myself, but like Ten Commandments, the Bible, Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur is probably the best religious film, best biblical film I've ever seen. Though I'm gonna check out Ten Commandments and the Bible in the beginning. But the film I'll probably check out next is Bridge on the River Kwai and Ben-Hur, as well, or not Ben-Hur, Spartacus, because I haven't seen that in years. Yeah, and I'm also gonna rewatch the Godfather movies to reevaluate which one I think is like. I like Godfather Part One, still my favorite of the movies, but I'm still divided on whether I think it's critically the best in a trilogy over The Godfather Part 2, which is also a 10 out of 10 film. I think they're both close on their level of quality, but I'm going to make a video on that too. So, yeah, that's that. Oh, yeah, so about the reveals, yeah, so at 30,000 subscribers, I think I have some like it's gonna be worth it. Trust me. The If we can get to 30,000 subscribers by the end of September, I will do the reveal. If we don't, I'll do it another time. But I have a goal 1,000. I'll do a top 10 or even 20 movies of all time, and 30,000 will do the big reveal. So yeah, I'm glad I've gotten into making film. We've gotten into making film videos for the channel, along with the gaming and memes and the recent horror. If you saw the weird, scary thumbnails and all the weird, if you think I like went insane in those videos, I was just kind of bored, so I decided to make some weird horror. I wouldn't even consider them horror; they're just weird videos, like the one with all the cans. Yeah, I actually drank all of those. But yeah, I just wanted to see what would happen. I put the titles into Russian because I wanted to make it more cryptic, and yeah, it helped. So yeah, we'll be doing film videos along with it. Me and Mayor Dragon will do a video on The Thing soon. If we can get like a VHS or something to use to kind of as the I don't know, but we'll be doing a video on The Thing because that's one of my favorite horror movies. It's impressive. Like, all of these films taught me one thing about cinema. They do not make them the same anymore. Like, they don't put, like, they still put in a lot of work, but not as much as they did back then when they had less. Like, they had inferior technology to us today for filmmaking, and yet they managed to make films that we cannot recreate today despite having superior technology. It's more about the money. Lawrence of Arabia taught me that. Ben-Hur showed me that. It is honestly one of the most impressive films I've ever seen. It's probably one of the only other films I feel comes close to Lawrence of Arabia, and just in terms of the greatness, the scale, the scope. It's honestly a strong contender for me to give it a 10 out of 10, honestly. But yeah, Bridge on the River Kwai. I'm going to check that out. And I'm going to see, is it better than Lawrence of Arabia? But for now, Lawrence of Arabia is still my top movie of all time. But another thing I might think of is actually comparing it to the Godfather films, because I haven't seen those in a while, so I might have forgotten how great they are. And they could honestly, might possibly top Lawrence of Arabia, because it's still obvious. I still hold my opinion on those films that they're still on the film that's still the greatest, but there's a few films that I think if I watch them again and think about it long enough could possibly slightly edge it out. It's still gonna be in my top 5 and top 3, but it's still, for now, it's in number 1. It changes all the time for everyone, but right, like the two films I see are considered the greatest of all time by most people are the the two films I always see at the top of those lists as the greatest films of all time are, I believe, Citizen Kane, 1940s classic. That's an amazing film. And then of course, the most common film I see considered to be the greatest of all time is of course The Godfather, which I almost always see at the top of the greatest movie of all time lists. And I agreed for a long while, but I did find films that I mean, it's still one of my top three films of all time, top five if it gets edged out by Godfather Part Two. But it's still amazing, and it's my favorite one of my favorite classic Hollywood films, one of my favorite movies of all time. For a time, it was my favorite of all time, but still, it's an amazing film. 10 out of 10. Um, the film that... What was the other film that I was going to bring up? Oh, yeah. So, Citizen Kane. Is it the greatest film of all? It's one of my top 10 films of all time, for sure. It was influential, but it's still 10 out of 10 film. But for me, it wasn't the... Like, it's still a perfect movie, but it didn't stick with me as much as these other ones. Like, I did find it to be not as entertaining. It's still investing, but not as investing. And it can be boring for some people. Like, yeah, 10 out of 10 film, but not the most investing for me. Like, I might bring its score down to a 99 because of some people might find it boring, but it's still one of my top 10. I think Casablanca's better though. It's Casablanca's amazing. 1940s film. And yet to check out. Oh yeah, Braveheart. I've seen this film a lot. Yeah, some people might criticize this for being historically inaccurate, but I still think this is an amazing movie. Like, not a 10 out of 10, but still great. I like William. I think it's William Wallace. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you if you like movies about like the movie historical epics, war movies, this is still amazing. It's like 1990s Lawrence of Arabia, not as good but still amazing. Like Schindler's List is still my favorite 90s film. Well, critically I think it's the best 90s film. I think my favorite 90s movie, it's going to be a it's usually I'm usually thinking of like maybe Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption is my it's a film that I've watched many times. Like it's also a 10 out of 10. Okay, I think there you know what? Actually, I think there's more than 10 out of 10 movies. Nearly 20 in fact. But yeah, Shawshank Redemption's a 10 out of 10 film for me. I love it. It's a great story. Best Stephen King movie for sure. Like Stand By Me is also great. I loved that one growing up. When I was a kid, I made a top 10 movies of all time with just random Marvel, Star Wars, Karate Kid, but Stand By Me was on there. I used to think the first film I called the greatest movie of all time was the Interstellar by Christopher Nolan. And like I still stand by it being one of my favorite. Like it's still one of my it's one of my top 40 movies of all time, but I wouldn't call it the number one greatest. Like it's amazing, one of Nolan's best films, but like yeah, it was probably one of the first like truly amazing films I watched when I was a kid, mainly because I couldn't watch R-rated films just yet, and some of the greatest films of all time are R-rated and a bit too mature for me. But now that now that I'm a whole lot older, I can get to know some of these films as all-time classics. Like I didn't grow up in the 70s or 80s. I didn't grow up with all of these films, but like I grew up with Lord of the Rings. I grew up with Lord of the Rings, and I love those. Those are my favorite movies, absolutely, but they don't quite I think Lord of the Rings, even though I love the Lord of the Rings so much, the first two films do have some problems. They're still near perfect movies, but they have some problems. I originally gave Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King a 99 out of 100, but I eventually gave it like a 10 out of 10 because the one problem I had with it was, well, I guess there was this one scene that felt kind of off to me, but after watching it again, it's actually a pretty well done scene. So I I'm sorry to all you Lord of the Rings fans that I didn't give it the recognition it deserved, but Lord of the Rings Return of the King is still an amazing movie nonetheless. Like, absolutely. Like, I bet you reading the thumbnail to this I bet you reading the thumbnail to this video saw like T.E. Lawrence is T.E. Lawrence, the real life Paul Atreides film talk. Like this, you thought this film would be a large talk about how they're similar, and yeah, it was for like the first few minutes, but then it just went on to me ranting about movies. So, uh, it's I just love movies. Like I also love video games, but like I have a really big place in my heart for movies as well. I don't know what I like better, movies or video games, but like I've been in love with movies since I was a kid. So is Mayor Dragon. Mayor Dragon loves films as well. He loves The Thing. The Thing's a great film, and Terminator is also great. That was a random one I brought up, but I think we could also do a film on that, a video on that. I'm actually the announcement is gonna be coming. Help us get from like 31 subs to 30,000 within the next month and a half. I know we can do it. I know we can do it. But or at least maybe even if we get to 10,000, I might think of doing the announcement as well. 10 to 30,000. If we can get to 10 to 30,000 subs within the next month and a half, we'll do the we'll do the announcement. It's big reveal. Like that road trip thing isn't happening for a while. The road trip isn't happening for a while, but once we get to 3 to 8 million, which 5 to 8 million, which probably isn't happening for a long while. We're a very small channel that hasn't got like too many subs or views. We have like what 15,000 views, but even then compared to someone like Mr. Beast who has over 1 billion, we're one of the smaller ones. But if we can get bigger, we're not doing this for the subs, we're not doing this for the money, we're doing this to entertain the audience. We're not doing this for the views, we're doing this for the viewers. Not for the views, for the viewers. We're doing this to provide entertainment for the people who watch us, and we're glad to make people happy. Even if we only had one subscriber, even if me and Mad Dragon only had one subscriber and a few views from that one subscriber, we'd still be happy that we are providing good entertainment to that subscriber. So, yeah, not for the views, for the viewers. But the reason I'm asking to get to more subscribers is so we can get more funds to do these big things for the viewers. Like the road trip would be a fun thing to do. I really want to get out and see the rest of the world. We don't have the money for that just yet. Currently trapped here in Canada. But I mean, Canada's nice. Like, but I also want to do a road trip in the United States. That would be nice. Especially since I'm a Fallout fan, I would get to see different places, like especially Nevada. Maybe I did mention this in a previous video, but go to Arkansas and see if we can run into Queso if we go to a Waffle House. I mean, Queso's the one who, like, I started this channel with as a solo YouTuber, but then I talked to my best buddy, Mayor Dragon, and he gave me the idea to start the channel. So he's the one. Mayor Dragon's the one who truly started this channel. He deserves credit for getting us up here, like helping us get even bigger. Like 31 subscribers isn't that big, but to us it's been a great journey with you guys, and we're happy that we've gotten the views from you guys. We're doing this for you guys, and we're happy to have you. Like, me and Mayor Dragon are so happy to have started this channel, and also a thank you to Queso for inspiring me to start the channel, because I saw him as within like 2 years he's become one of the biggest streamers in the world, and I was inspired to see if I could do that within a few years. I could get big like him. But then I remembered it's not always about the views, about the attention. It's about the viewers. Like, It's about providing good entertainment for the fans, for the people that watch you, not just using them to get money. But that money, if we ever make money from this channel, we will use it to provide even greater content for the people that helped us. So thank you. For like we started in January. The year is only a few months until it's over, but that 1 year anniversary of this channel is coming up in like what, 5 months, January 26th. But thank you all for sticking with us, and well, this was supposed to be a movie video, not like a whatever. I get off topic sometimes. But thank you guys for helping the channel out. We will be doing more movie and video game content, and we'll keep on going. Don't know what's in store for the future of this channel, but whatever it is, I'm excited to see it. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate the viewers. I appreciate everyone. We all appreciate everyone helping us out. Thank you. Oh yeah, back to the movies. So, Lawrence of Arabia is great. I'm gonna be doing 2 more videos, maybe even post them later today, but look forward to those. If you would like to comment on any films that you think is better than Lawrence of Arabia that I haven't seen yet, let me know if there's films like that. Like someone commented The Color Purple on one of my videos, and I hear that's a great film, so I might check that out as well. But thank you for watching. You came here to see a Dune and Lawrence of Arabia comparison. Then it went from a Dune to Lawrence of Arabia comparison to a talk of other movies to the thank you video, I guess. So, well, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.